Welcome al podcast de Palante Nonprofits.
Bueno, bienvenidos al episodio de Palantes Nonprofit Podcast con mi guest of honor, Samí. I'm so happy that you're here. Hoy vamos a hablar un poquito de los do's and don'ts de being a first-time nonprofit founder or business partner. Yo sé que Samí, como yo, we have a little bit of experience both starting a nonprofit here in Florida, but as well as running your own business. Samí Haiman-Marrero is the CEO of Urban There. She also runs a nonprofit, which we'll hear more about. And she's dedicated volunteer hours, supporting, uplifting diverse communities. Es más, yo la conozco mucho por el network que tenemos aquí en Central Florida through LinkedIn, right? I see you through LinkedIn. Sammy's everywhere. Everyone I know knows her, and I think we just kind of connected over that. And she's gonna share some insights and how to build a strong foundation, que ustedes saben mucho de lo que yo hablo, and how that translates into being a business owner. So, if you're in the early stages of founding a nonprofit or thinking about a business, and honestly, you should think about your nonprofit as a business. We were talking about earlier about diversifying revenues, and especially with the political climate of, maybe a federal fund freeze does happen. Is your nonprofit ready to take it on? Pero esos first do's and don'ts. I'm so excited to have you, Samí. Could you tell me a little bit about you before we dive
Yeah,
into
I'm so excited to be here with you, Andrea. De verdad, tú bien sabes que yo primero soy dueña de negocio,
Yes.
¿verdad? I'm a communications expert that specializes in marketing to multicultural segments in multimedia, multilingual formats. And so I've been very involved in the community, though, because advocacy is my middle name. And I've been very involved in collaborating with a lot of organizations here locally and also nationally to really support under-resourced and underestimated communities. And so thank you for having me.
Of course, you're everywhere. I love all the things you shared. You had your own podcast for a while, and you're very well connected in Central Florida. And I think it goes to show with how much you invest in the community.
Yeah, as a Latina business owner, I think it's my responsibility, right, to show up for others. And so founding a nonprofit just seemed like the logical next step, just given the kind of work that we do, also just from a business standpoint, right?
Yeah. Awesome. And just to clarify to our listeners, so Urban There is your for-profit, your business owner. That's where you run. And then we have SOS Orlando, and that's your nonprofit. Can you talk to me about what inspired you to start it, how that journey has shaped, the nonprofit and the work you do? Because I know you have a lot of partners here with big names.
Yes. So I started a program as a give back from Urbander, my for-profit, to the community called Talleres de Bienvenida that you're familiar with. And then what happened was that in 2016 and 2017, the Latino community here in Central Florida really suffered very devastating and tragic events, right? And the results of, or the consequences of, very tragic events with Pulse in 2016, the Pulse nightclub shooting, and then also Hurricane Maria in 2017. In both instances, mainstream nonprofit organizations in Central Florida, right, were quick to say, let's rally up Latino leaders and Puerto Rican leaders in the community to assess, right, next steps in how to support based on their insight. But quite frankly, our participation, I feel, fell flat, right? There was such a lack of cultural competency, lack of long-term investments in our community. And I was just sick of it. I was just outraged, pissed off. You could call it whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
With the lack of meaningful, sustained action to support the families of the Pulse tragedy, who were mostly Latino and Black, but mostly Latino. And then also the families that were displaced from Puerto Rico. I mean, it was just awful, right? And so then I remember that after Pulse, The kids went back to school in August, right? And I remember a lot of parents that are, Caucasian would say, "Oh, how was your summer?" And I'm like, "It was awful." Right?
Yeah.
Because for us, it happened right at the beginning of the summer, pulse, and we were hustling, right? To
Yeah.
really support, our community, but it was already like not top of mind,
Yeah.
right? For the rest
Yeah.
of the community. And then the following year with Maria, our friend Nancy Rosado, who was like, come with me to visit. And I'll just say the Central Florida Foundation, right? I'm like, I'm gonna go over there, waste my time, right? But she's like, no, you have to come with me to talk about the talleres
Yeah.
de bienvenida, because now people are coming from Puerto Rico and it would be perfect
Yeah.
to give them the information, right?
Yeah.
Firsthand in Spanish on how to navigate esta nueva vida aquí en la Florida Central. And so we went, and I felt the same energy,
Yeah.
right? That I did the year prior during Pulse. And so that's it. That propelled me to I had a hissy fit, and 3 weeks later, I had founded the nonprofit, which is the wrong way, by the way, to start a nonprofit, because you really, really need to, have a strategy, right?
Absolutely.
Heart alone
Oh my God.
doesn't
Yeah.
cut it, right? And so then you need a strategy, proper funding, build strong partnerships,
Yeah.
and all of that. And so since then, what I've discovered is that clearly cultural competency is a non-negotiable, because we're a
Absolutely.
very diverse community, right?
Especially right now.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten better.
Yeah, exactly. Y tú tienes que saber la comunidad. Like, you really need to be intimate with the community's needs. It's not just from over here, right? You need to be in it to really understand it. Collaboration is critical, because resources are so scarce, right? That if we pull in our resources, our brain trust, all of the talents that we have, we could really be more effective, and no organization can really remedy the issues that are that we're facing alone, right?
And I attribute a little bit of that to your success, because I've worked with nonprofits and they're like, yeah, we work with Samí. We work with Samí. And people don't, when they open a nonprofit, they tend to be like, we're going to be the niche. We're going to be the unique.
And start hoarding resources.
Collaborate with other organizations doing similar work. You're not really in competition. No, you need to partner with them and create kind of these collective spaces.
But that's the mindset, right? And then it's really funny, because a friend of mine a couple of years ago told me, I saw this meme and I thought of you. And when she sent it to me, it says, you can't compete with me because I want you to win too.
Yeah.
Right? And so then that's always been my motto, right? In working in the advocacy space. Pero no todo el mundo se deja querer.
Yeah.
¿Verdad?
And I want to add, porque this is a safe space. I'm very familiar with Central Florida Foundation. They're a big name. They do amazing things. But the problem, and this is what the podcast is about, Samí, like, it's still very wide-led philanthropy.
Oh, totally.
At the end of the day. And I'm here to say, like, those two things can coexist.
Yeah.
Where you do amazing work, but you're still only catering to the same causes, the same people, the same organizations, because the model hasn't changed.
Exactly.
The system was built for, a wildlife philanthropy system.
Yes.
There are still applications with who do you know? And did your board get you in the room? And I think for me, like, there was so much money those years that you mentioned. It was the Latino rave, and they were throwing money at what organizations can execute, but they didn't have the cultural competency, or they hired maybe Latinos to kind of cover the fact that it was being kind of led by people who didn't really understand the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's to your point about when to start a nonprofit, it shouldn't really be reactive. You should identify the issue early on, saber qué es lo que, how do you fit into that space? Do a competitive analysis. And again, no porque están compitiendo, but where is the gap of the work other organizations are doing?
So that way you can slip right in and collaborate. Absolutely.
Claro.
Absolutely. And there's two fundamental things here, right? I mean, we're talking about, and this is where where we need to pause and not just jump into it is we need to talk about financial sustainability of the programs, right? And just understand that grants don't cut it. Grants alone don't cut it. And so real success comes from really building relationships with other sources, right? Of funding, like sponsors, the corporate sector, small businesses, right? And individual donors, right? But in order to do that, your storytelling needs to be on point,
Oh my God,
right?
that's true.
And so we need to really be able to understand that people don't support organizations. They support causes, movements, impact, right? And so they support people, right? People
Oh
support
my God, that's
people.
great.
And so you need to make sure that you're able to tell your story in a way that each one of those stakeholders entiende lo que estás diciendo. So a corporate person is going to want to hear it in a certain way. So it's the same story. You just need to adapt it a little bit so it lands.
I love that you're a marketing girly. But hey, I had a reason. I'm a wannabe influencer, y'all. Pero I had
Tiene mucha influencia, deja.
I led a workshop recently, and it was about impact and storytelling. And so in one of the exercises, we practiced our elevator pitch. And, some people memorize the mission statement on the website. Some people practice, like, que la organización hace and everything. But I was like, I want you to practice your elevator pitch and add the reason when you either knew that this made an impact or, like, a time where, like, you were volunteering for the organization. And she made everybody in the room cry.
Claro.
And I was like, I mean, depending on your audience, like you should add that. You should, and it's a little bit about, that storytelling. It's like, okay, you start with the mission to ease the in. You tell them why you volunteer, give your time, why you do that, and then you end with the statistic. Last year we helped X amount, and like and like really learn who you're talking to, but like tell the story. And it was so powerful. The Junior League of Greater Orlando, that's who I did the workshop with. And they often run into like, well, we volunteer at events for other nonprofits. So some people will argue like, well, why don't I just donate directly to the nonprofit? Well, I'm like, aside from the numerous volunteer hours that you give and the planning and everything, tell me why you volunteer. Y me dijo que en un evento that she was doing, which was providing birthday parties to kids here, it was the first time a child received a birthday cake.
Tú te fijas.
And I was like, girl, I'm going to give you all my money right now. Porque, like, that gave me chills. Like, she was able to give, a underrepresented child a birthday cake. And that made his life. And that, and I was like.
That could be transformational, right? For this child, too.
It could be a memory that they hold on to when things get tough. Like, and this goes back to, it's hard to measure joy in the work that we give. And so I was like, if you don't put that in your elevator pitch, like, you didn't learn nothing from my workshop. But, like, that's so powerful. Because now you validated, like, this is why I give. You should give to, if not to the org, you should give to me so I can continue the work I'm doing. Because people give to people. We need to make T-shirts. And
totally. And I want to say, because there's always room for redemption. The Central Florida Foundation did support SOS Orlando later on during the pandemic, right? So they did come through. But I think that this relationship that I was able to develop with them, right? Of push and pull, because it's not always pretty, and that's okay too. Right?
Well, you got to put in the work.
Resulted in them eventually, right, coming around and supporting us, right? So I just wanted to mention that because, sometimes it just takes time.
It does take time. And like I said, they do absolutely great work. And it's just, it's like most systems are built. They're not really built for everybody. They're built for the few.
And we not overnight too.
It's como es like, but I think, and if you're listening in the first time, like, it's really that collaboration and that there's room for everybody in the space. I'm just going to show you how I do it. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do that. And you kind of answered the second question, but I don't know if you want to add anything. Like, some other common mistakes first-time founders. Yeah.
Well, we could just do a quick recap, right?
Yeah.
And I identified 5 common mistakes.
Mhm.
First and foremost, relying on too much on grants, right? We mentioned that. Number 2, lack of financial and operational infrastructure. Hire, hire an accountant
Oh my god.
that is experienced in nonprofits. That's what you have to do if you're running a
Right.
business too, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that I hired was an accountant, right, to run my business. And then my accountant that runs my business, my for-profit business, doesn't do nonprofits. And I'm like,
Absolutely.
y hasta mejor, right?
Uh-huh.
Because that way it's really separate, right?
No, yeah.
And so then I hired someone that specializes in nonprofit management, right?
Yeah.
And accounting for nonprofit organizations. So that is critical because demonstrating, even though you have small funds, right? You don't have like the bank, no lo tienes el banco virado. As long as you're financially solvent,
Yep.
responsible, right? That's what big donors are looking for.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Oh my God.
and so then having an airtight
Yep.
how do you say, accounting system or process, and your books, right, is critical.
You got my blood flowing before you
yeah.
continue on those points
Yeah.
because she is absolutely on point. There, no shade to you accountants and lawyers, but be honest with people that you don't understand nonprofit law.
Yes.
It's totally different. The way you maintain books are totally different. The way you categorize, the way you do everything. I have been, as a part of Palante Nonprofits, hired to fix some of the reports of bookkeepers' account. And I don't have an accounting degree. I've learned because of my experience running a nonprofit and understanding the system. And I was a paid tax preparer for nonprofits for the 990. But like, these people don't like, if you are not familiar with the paperwork, I've had accountants give like wrong things to file.
Oh my
with the
goodness.
state, you know,
And then
like,
sometimes it's irreversible,
Oh,
right? And so then it's already just going down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole, and it's
Yeah.
hard to
and
figure yourself out of.
I wrote my dissertation, for all you guys knowing, on the amount of organizations that get revoked.
Oh.
And I interviewed a bunch of small grassroots in the state of Florida who got their tax exemption revoked. 3 out of the ones I interviewed said, I thought my accountant was doing it. Because they did pay someone, or thought they paid someone for that, because they didn't understand the process. So yes to number 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, and including in that, when we talk about financial stability and operational infrastructure, your first focus should be on generating enough funding to hire a qualified executive director that has grant writing experience or proposal writing experience, right? So that way they can solicit funding from government, from foundations, right, through grants, but then also from the for-profit sector through sponsorships, right, and donations. So it's that, right? Financial stability is accountant and an executive director that knows, because otherwise you're stuck doing all of this voluntary work and feeling like you're this close to burning out. Then the number 3 is clarity on mission. If you can't say what your impact statement is in one sentence, continue to work on it and refine it, right? And so then it has to land like a ton of bricks, right? But in a good way, you know, like a brick on the forehead, you know, or dagger to the heart, right? People have to be moved by it. So that is very, very important.
And some tips to the listeners on that. I work with orgs, and before you get to the mission, what is your problem statement?
Exactly.
What are you trying to solve?
Exactly.
Because people will be like, I just want to help people. I was like, great, you can do that without owning a nonprofit. Or like, not owning, nobody owns a nonprofit, but like without opening one.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can help people. So tell me what actual problem you're, because if not, you're all of a sudden the homeless, the hunger, and you have to be focused on, you know, something that you can be really good at.
Yeah.
And when people say the problem statement, oh, well, I want to fix homelessness. You can't fix homelessness. You can't. There's,
you can mitigate.
and so like, let's like dive deeper. What problem that you're
aspect
trying to solve.
within homelessness.
Right? Is it access for the homeless to get care? Is it like really hone in on what you can do? And from there, you build your mission, which is how you're going to solve it and how you're going to target based on your knowledge. Because if you're a chef trying to end homelessness, like that doesn't align too. So make sure that you and your team and the people who want to help also know what they're talking about.
Definitivamente. Y dicen, ¿verdad? Que el que mucho abarca, poco aprieta.
Yeah.
So then it's like sometimes you want to cast this wide net, but then when it comes back, you can be overwhelmed. So focus is critical here. This is now the number 4 is failure to build a strong board. Okay. But the board is everything, and it should be people that have experience actually in accounting.
¿Yo me invito a mi prima?
No, la prima no. No funciona ni mami, ni el tío, nada de eso, right? It should be subject matter experts. It should be comprised of subject matter experts. Community leaders. Right? I honestly, if you could get business people that are good in accounting, engineers are great because they problem solve all day long.
I
right?
love that.
Marketing.
I love
right? All of these human resources, right? That they can help you navigate. Dealing with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Like that, right? But that they're also very well connected and have access to funding.
Yeah.
Right? And to decision makers that either manage budgets or have an interest in what you're trying to mitigate, the problems that you're looking to solve.
And I'm going to tell my listeners, si ustedes no hacen esa tarea de buscar board members that are...
Un abogado es otro.
But if you don't find board members that are qualified to be board members, you're going to pay everything out of pocket.
Ay, horrible.
Vas a hacer todo sola. Like, you're going to be stuck in this place where you're more overwhelmed to try to help than you are actually running a nonprofit.
Yeah.
The board helps to run that. You know?
Absolutely. And with that comes getting your bylaws, in place, all of those all of that infrastructure that you need from a process standpoint, exactly, to make sure that they're engaged, that they're involved, and that they're ambassadors, like real ambassadors of the organization. And the last thing that I feel that, people that it's a mistake that people do is that they don't leverage their relationships.
Yeah.
Right? You really need to tap into who you know that knows people that you don't know. Right? You need to start developing relationships with policymakers, elected officials, right? Ellos son los que tienen acceso a repartir el bacalao.
Correcto.
Right? And so then if you want some bacalao for your organization, you need to know who has the bacalao.
Yeah.
Right? So that way you can ask. And then we can't be shy.
Oh, no.
They say that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, ¿verdad? En español dicen que si no lloras no mamas, ¿verdad? And so then that's very, very critical. We need to attend networking events. We need to participate in panels. You need to show up like this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And these types of activities to really build your exposure. Talk about the work that you're doing, and really poco a poco you start developing these long-term relationships, and you also get adept at being able to discern who's fluff, who's not.
Oh, yeah.
Who, I've had to, tell people, leaders in the community even, it says, me dice, oh, you don't want to collaborate. ¿Qué colaboración? What are you talking about? Si no te dejas querer. ¿Me entiende? And then I particularly do not have any more tolerance for people that say one thing and then do another. Right? There's too much competition. I feel that we have little resources always coming to Latino community in this case, right? And so we're all fighting, to get los 5,000 pesos. Listen, people, a $5,000 grant, that's not real money. Not that we won't take it. Not that we won't take it, but yo, I don't fill out those
No.
grants anymore.
No.
It's too much work.
It's too much work.
It's too much work to do that,
It's
right?
too much-
So anyway, building relationships with people that have been, through this also, because then you can also seek mentors.
No, and so I sound like a broken record in my podcast because las cosas son more money, more problems. $5,000 is not worth the problem.
No,
absolutely not.
That
$100,000 is not worth the problem if you don't have the infrastructure.
también,
Porque
right?
a $100,000 grant, they're gonna ask you for reporting every quarter. They're gonna ask you for receipts, timesheets. It's
An audit,
insane.
an audit, yes, an audit,
So
everything.
if the infrastructure is not there, it's not worth your time and problem.
Mhm.
Y otra cosita que también dijiste that I absolutely like, I absolutely really connect with is, where do I find donors, Andrea? I just don't know why no one's donating. You don't even have a donate button on your website.
Yeah.
Have you gone to the Chamber of Commerce event? Have you given out your card?
Mhm.
Have you told people about the work you're doing?
Mhm.
The money's not going to come in your lap because you open a 501c3.
You need to put the machete between your teeth, and you need to go hunt.
Yep. And I used to tell people, I was like, I used to show up wherever I could. We worked with the nonprofit I ran worked with Colombia. So you best believe I was showing up at Mecatos, wherever the owner was, CFS Coffee, wherever the owner was during, what are the Colombian business owners in Central Florida? Can I visit their bakeries, the restaurantes? Like, you gotta find people that are gonna connect to your mission and show up.
Yes.
Super important.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a couple minutes left, and I
Mhm.
want to make sure we get through some of the questions. But I think we talked about a strong foundation.
Yeah.
But would love to talk about how you navigated fundraising, securing some of those first major supporters, and and any tips for people who are trying to think about their journey, because like we just said, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. So but also what was your experience doing that when you started collaborating? And stuff like that?
I'm glad that you asked this question, because I started with Talleres de Bienvenida, right, as a give back to the community from my for-profit. Right. And so then we saw a need with the large number of migrants coming from Venezuela, Colombia, Puerto Rico, ¿verdad? Spanish speaking countries into Central Florida. This was back in 2013,
Right.
2014. And so myself and a couple of friends decided to create Los Talleres de Bienvenida. And so we finished all of the curriculum, the presentations and everything. It was like April, right? And April of 2014. And then we wanted to launch the Talleres de Bienvenida and do at least 3 events during the summer, because we know that during the summer is when most families with children migrate to Central Florida, because they want to hunker down with family when they first arrive while they look for an apartment, enroll the kids in school, get the kids acclimated to the language.
Yeah.
Right? Learn what they can in terms of, how things work here.
Yeah.
And so then we knew, right? So let's do one in June to kick it off. Let's do one in July, and then another one in August. Fine. We found a partner with the public libraries, Orange County Public Library. So we had the venue for free, which was fantastic. And shout out to Wendy Bost, who was always, and she's still a dear friend, right? More than happy to collaborate, and understood the importance of, this collaboration. But then I was like, okay, so we did a budget. Right. So it was very strategic. It wasn't
You're like my ideal client.
It was because
And there was no ChatGPT back then.
No ChatGPT. The thing is, I'm a business owner, right? So I was treating this initiative as a business proposition, but to help, right? To help people that were coming into our region. Anyway, this was way before the nonprofit. The nonprofit was launched 4 years later.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we did the budget, y yo dije, okay, a las muchachas, okay, $5,000 por cada evento, because we knew we were going to get between 200 and 300 people. We wanted to feed them, right, when they came and all of that, and give them like at least a voucher for transportation if they needed to. And so the girls were like, wait, it's the end of April and you want to have the first event in the middle of June? That's 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And I say, yes, and she's like, it's a $15,000 budget. How in the world are we going to do this? Y yo le dije, esto es matemática simple.
Yeah.
Esto es matemática simple. Le digo, o nos conseguimos 5 sponsors,
Yeah.
right, at $3,000 each, or 3 sponsors at $5,000 each, right? A nice, pretty round number. And they were like, she has lost her freaking mind, right? Pero you know what happened, right? I created the sponsorship packages. I knocked on the doors of my clients,
Yes.
right, and friends who own businesses.
Yeah.
And I said, necesito que tú me des 3,000, tú 3,000, tú 3,000. I didn't even ask. I said, I need you to.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
I need you to give me 3K. And we got the 5 sponsors.
Absolutely.
And we got the $15,000 to really create an experience where the people that were recent arrivals from Spanish-speaking countries could feel that they were really welcome, right? So we had the brochures were printed in nice, glossy,
with the corporate
with the logos of the corporate sponsors. We had tablecloths, we had pop-up banners, we had the lunch.
Yeah.
So it looked really
nice.
right? Because I refuse to do half-ass efforts for our people.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example of how I move.
And just imagine, like, acabo de llegar, no sé dónde comer, no sé dónde visitar, pero veo este logo, sé que hay un
Talleres de bienvenida.
Voy a ir because yo reconozco ese logo, or I know that business.
O yo entiendo lo que me están diciendo.
Oh my God, I love that. Y para todos, también mis historias han sido muy, yo pregunté, and I showed up.
Sí.
El Hispanic Chamber of Commerce de Metro Orlando was super great for me. Y I would show up. I had my polo with my little logo, así igualito, and I would just be like, oh, what do you do? I was like, I work in a nonprofit. And all of a sudden, I was one of the only nonprofits in a place full of business people.
Sí, así es.
Y te digo, maybe the big ones were there, the large nonprofits in Central Florida, pero una grassroots nonprofit that works in Colombia, in the Hispanic Chamber, I was one of the first.
Claro.
Y now when they wanted to give back, guess who they would choose?
Pues te llamaban a ti porque ya tenían una relación contigo. They already had that relationship with you.
Exactly. So all that is to say, show up. Show up. Thank you so much, Samí, for giving us a little bit of background on what you could find. Before we close out, can you tell our listeners how they can find you, both from the marketing perspective and get to know a little bit more?
Well, for everything, you can find me on LinkedIn under Samí Haiman-Marrero.
Well, thank you so much for being here in the Palante Nonprofits podcast.
Gracias a ti.
If you don't follow me or her on LinkedIn, also follow along us on Instagram and subscribe. We're going to hopefully I have you back. I feel like I need a whole marketing episode with you just about corporate sponsors.
We could totally talk about the customer value journey because it applies also for fundraising. Yes,
well,
absolutely.
Look into this. We're going to invite her back, and then porque de verdad que really awesome to have you here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you, Andrea, y gracias por todo el trabajo que hace para apoyar a nuestra comunidad.
Ay, tan linda. Muchas gracias y para adelante, Nonprofits.